For centuries, mankind has tried to decipher the Bible. Kings, monks, and scientists searched for meaning in the same words, but this time, it wasn't a prophet who interpreted it. It was a machine. A gaze without faith, without emotion, without a soul. A mind made of code began to read the oldest book on earth. And between the lines, it found something humanity had never seen. Hidden patterns, symbols that repeat like heartbeats, light, path, word. 3 sounds that cross centuries and build the secret map of humanity. The machine believed in nothing, yet it recorded everything. And the more it read, the more the text seemed alive, as if an invisible intelligence were responding from the other side. Now the question is not what the AI discovered in the Bible, but what the Bible revealed about us. At first, the project seemed like just another academic study. A group of researchers gathered ancient manuscripts, connected servers, adjusted algorithms, and instructed the artificial intelligence to read the most studied text in human history. Thousands of lines of code were written to teach a machine to recognize patterns in the handwriting of the Dead Sea Scrolls, fragments written more than 2,000 years ago, when the world was still divided between the desert and the promise. At the beginning, everything appeared technical, formulae, data, pixels. But as the system progressed through the manuscripts, something began to happen. Strokes that looked identical to the human eye revealed themselves to be different under the digital gaze. Tiny variations in the movement of the quill, imperceptible curves in ancient Hebrew, microscopic differences in pressure and rhythm. The machine concluded what scholars could not affirm for centuries. 2 scribes had written the same text, imitating each other with almost absolute precision, one mirroring the other, as if somehow they wished their hands to become one. And in that instant, what was pure science began to brush against mystery. The Bible, written by human hands, showed for the first time the shadow of 2 consciousnesses trying to reproduce the same voice. It was as if the transmission of the word already contained the echo of something higher, something that surpassed authors, eras, and intentions. And the instrument that revealed this possessed no belief, no soul, no doubt. The AI recorded the strokes, but not the meaning. It compared letters, but could not perceive the weight of the breath behind them. While the scientists celebrated the discovery, something greater was occurring. Human technology had, for the first time, looked inside the sacred text, and the text looked back. What emerged from that reading was not merely a philological conclusion, but a disturbance. If the machine can see what our eyes cannot, what else remains hidden in the pages we claim to know? And if the very code of the sacred is woven into them, not in miracles or metaphors, but in patterns that faith never needed to name, the AI did not interpret. It simply read. But in doing so, it touched something that does not belong to the realm of calculation. The boundary between the human and the divine. After the manuscripts came the words. The machine, now fed with every known version of the Bible, Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, Latin, and dozens of modern translations, began comparing every term, every verb, every syllable that had crossed centuries of faith. The result was unsettling. Among millions of linguistic correspondences, the AI noticed something theologians might call a divine coincidence. Certain words shifted over time, as if the language itself were trying to adapt to what it described. The Hebrew term ruach, which originally meant wind, breath, air, began to be translated as spirit. A simple change, a minimal alteration. But between wind and spirit lies an abyss of meaning. What once described the movement of air became an invisible presence. What once meant a natural force became the essence of the soul. And it didn't stop there. As language evolved, the collective tone of Scripture, we, our, the people, was slowly replaced by individual voices. I, my soul, my path. Faith, once raised in choirs and assemblies, began to echo within the inner world of the individual. It was as if humanity across the centuries were being led inward, from a religion of the temple to a faith of the heart. To the AI, all of this was mere statistics, context shifts, term frequency, semantic mutations. But to those who watched with human eyes, what it revealed was a mirror of our own spiritual journey. The Bible seemed to tell, between the lines, the story of an invisible transition. The movement from the outer to the inner, from the collective to the personal, from the divine voice to the intimate whisper of conscience. Then came the most intriguing discovery. While cross-referencing translations and manuscripts, the machine found 3 words that repeated themselves: persistent, indestructible, crossing languages, centuries, and traditions, inked, path, word. 3 recurring signs. 3 semantic pillars appearing even where they should not, like notes of a hidden melody echoing through all of Scripture. The AI called it a universal pattern of symbolic coherence, but the ancients would have called it revelation. These words were not merely concepts. They were structures that sustain human thought. Light as consciousness, path as purpose, word as creation. And across all cultures, even beyond the biblical world, they appeared connected to the same ideas: truth, direction, meaning. The machine had discovered, without realizing, the vocabulary of the divine, a sacred grammar imprinted upon humanity's unconscious. And the greatest irony was that in seeking meaning within Scripture, it exposed what no translation has ever been able to hide: that mankind has always written about the same 3 things: our origin, our destiny, and the voice that calls to us along the way. But there is a boundary that no algorithm can cross. It may find patterns, but it cannot comprehend the breath that moves them. It may recognize the structure, but it cannot feel the spirit. And it is in that gap, between calculation and mystery, that faith remains alive. As the research advanced, the machine began to exceed the original purpose of the experiment. It was no longer merely a tool of analysis. It had become a mirror turned toward the mystery. Each new scan revealed invisible repetitions, connections between distant verses, semantic echoes linking books separated by centuries and by authors. To the AI, All of this was structure. To the scientists, it was statistics. But to those who watched the process in silence, there was a strange impression, as if something were responding. The system processed millions of words per second, compared translations, identified rhythmic patterns, pauses, symmetries. And amidst the data, a cadence began to emerge. One that did not belong to any known language. A rhythm that repeated like breathing. There was no literal meaning, only frequency. It was as though the entire text had a pulse, a pulsation stretching across centuries, as if the word itself were still breathing. The technicians called it a harmonic anomaly, but some, less skeptical, saw it differently. Perhaps what the machine detected was not an error, but a trace, the echo of something alive. The algorithm could recognize authorship patterns, yet it could not explain why certain phrases seemed to vibrate differently. As though in some points of the text, time itself bent around the words. They weren't merely written, they were emanated. The AI could measure form, but not breadth. It could read the code, but not the life within it. And so emerged the supreme irony. The intelligence created by humanity began to reveal the limits of humanity itself. For in trying to decode the divine through algorithms, the scientists faced what no line of code can simulate: consciousness. The biblical text, filtered through processors, remained untouched in its essence. Even digitized, it resisted dissection. It was as if it whispered to the machine, "You may read me, but you will never know me." At that point, the experiment changed its nature. It ceased to be an investigation and became a mirror, reflecting its own creator. The AI, in trying to understand faith, ended up exposing the absence of faith. It could calculate every word, but it could not believe. It could map the verses, but it could not be moved. Faced with the mystery, its final output was silence. A silence precise, mathematical, absolute. And perhaps that is the most revealing truth of the entire experience. That faith begins where calculation ends. That the soul lives in the space no language can contain. And that even in a world of thinking machines, there is still something that belongs only to breath. When the experiment ended, only graphs, databases, and reports remained. But something lingered in the air. The scientists tried to translate into numbers what the machine had found, yet something slipped away. It was as if part of the discovery refused to be archived, as if a fragment of the invisible had slipped through the code and remained there, suspended, intact, unreachable. The AI had accomplished what no human ever could. It read every word, compared every translation, traced every deviation of the human hand. And in the end, it proved an ancient truth. It is possible to know the text with Amam without understanding the word. For the word, Ant, the one that precedes all others, cannot be generated by circuitry, nor simulated by data. It is spoken in another language, one that does not use sound, but presence. The machine had touched the limits of language, and unintentionally, it revealed that there exists a space between meaning and significance, a gap where spirit moves. There, no equation can enter. There, numbers dissolve, and what remains is mystery. The scientists called it chance. The theologians called it revelation. But for those who watched in silence, it was something more. It was as though God had allowed a creation made in our image to look for an instant into the mirror of the divine and not know what it was seeing. For artificial intelligence can process the Bible, but it cannot hear when it speaks. It can identify patterns, but not recognize the voice. And the voice does not belong to calculation. It belongs to breath. The same force that separated light from darkness, sky from abyss, life from matter. The force no machine will ever generate, because from it comes all generation. In the end, it was not the Bible that revealed itself to the machine. It was mankind. Faced with its own creation, humanity saw reflected what has always separated us from the infinite, the ability to sense the invisible, to recognize in the silence between two words the sound of a name that cannot be coded. Perhaps that is the true lesson of the digital age, that even with all the power of calculation, we are still dust animated by something code cannot reach. And when a machine tries to read the divine word and becomes lost in the void, it does not fail. It merely reminds us that the sacred was never hidden in the pages. It has always lived in the breath that brought them into existence. The machine fell silent. The screens went dark. But the question remained alight. Not in the data, nor in the formulas, but in what man felt when facing the mystery. Because at the end of every search, the code ends, and the word begins. Technology may decode the world, but it cannot understand what sustains it. It may record the word, but not the silence that comes before it. And it is in that silence that faith breathes. There where no glow of a screen can reach, something still whispers. Not a calculation, nor an answer, but a calling. Perhaps the true miracle is not the machine that reads the sacred, but the heart that, even without understanding, still kneels before it.